now we move on to our final session, which is our lifeline, and it's called the talent pitch, where we will get to hear from different voices. So first up, we'll hear from an old friend in travel. He's one of the co-founders of one of travel's earliest startups in the social media monitoring space, Circos Brand Karma, and he's now senior engineering manager of Riot Games, best known for the League of Legends games. So he's going to talk about why I would not work in travel tech right now and lessons from the gaming world. So over to you, George.
Okay, full disclosure. The title of this talk is why I'm glad to not be in travel tech right now, but I don't want people to get the wrong idea. The truth is, I loved working in travel. For the better part of 12 years, I spent my days working with customers all over the world and my nights writing code. In the good times, I was staying in luxury hotels, eating at Michelin star restaurants, and filling the pages of my passport with exotic stamps. In the bad times, I was sleeping on couches and eating fast food and sitting in the absolute last row of the airplane, but I never lost my joy of travel. Meeting new people, discovering new experiences and new cultures, and finding those commonalities that make us all human. The best part about being a technologist is that regardless of industry, the technologies that we build are largely the same. In my career, I've worked in entertainment, fashion, sports, travel, and now video games. And the particulars of the technologies I've built have had far more similarities than differences. But the people could not be more different. The people are what I miss the most about travel. Fun-loving, warm, gracious, interesting, unique. I learned that I could find something I have in common with almost anyone. But I am glad that I'm not in travel tech right now. And here's a couple of reasons why. Number one, COVID. Don't get me wrong, the worst global pandemic in 100 years wasn't all bad. I, for example, learned that I don't have a future career as a bread maker. I also gained a newfound respect and admiration for what my kids' teachers have to deal with on a daily basis. But other than that, it was an unmitigated disaster. First and foremost, there are the 3.5 million fellow human beings who lost their lives. But for the survivors, many face health complications, financial ruin, and the existential angst of living in isolation. I myself feel far more isolated from my friends and colleagues than I did 18 months ago. And while video conferencing as a technology is a feat that was once reserved only to science fiction, its actual implementation has reminded us of how important physical proximity is to our very existence. Now that I've been vaccinated and California is in the yellow tier, I feel like there's a great weight that's been lifted off my shoulders. But I've come to recognize that people exist on a spectrum. I have friends that barely left their homes during this time. And for them, the criteria of what will make them feel safe are far more stringent than mine. So it's hard to say how this will impact travel. Will things return to normal? If so, how long? Or will travel be fundamentally altered? So while there may be opportunities for disruption and technology to fill some gaps, the reality is there are still so many factors outside of technology's control that's going to affect travel. And this is my second reason why I'm glad to not be in travel tech right now. In travel, tech is secondary. If you ask most people what they prefer in their travel experience, seamless, efficient, performant technology, but an uncomfortable, stressful, and generally miserable trip, or a memorable, productive, and transcendent trip marred by unusable, broken, or frustrating technology, they'd take the latter every time. And this is the reality when it comes to tech in travel. Tech is not part of the core experience. In fact, many travel experiences are centered around escaping technology. So for technologists looking to connect with their customer, the traveler, there are other providers that have a far greater impact on that customer experience. Looking back on my time in the industry, it was my love of travel that allowed me to connect with other travelers, not a more efficient algorithm for parsing and storing unstructured data. In fairness, most of my career in travel was focused on B2B technology, so there may be opportunities to build technology that's more core to the traveler experience, but that brings me to my third reason. Number 3, it's hard to try something new. The travel industry is filled with legacy tech. Building products for a global market often requires focusing on the lowest common denominator. This results in arcane systems with closed APIs and walled gardens that control access and information through legal contracts and obfuscation. Getting access to consumers requires the keys to the kingdom, and these keys are held by a handful of players. While there is opportunities for disruption, there isn't the same long tail of niche opportunities that you see in other industries. Now, I tend to be drawn to the road less traveled, and it's why I relish in my spectacular failures, in retrospect, more often than my modest successes. It's for that reason that I chose to make the jump to gaming, where being twice the age of most of my colleagues is the least of my challenges. But over the last 2.5 years, I've come to recognize that the same things that I don't miss about travel tech are the things that I love about video games. Most industries took a big hit during COVID. Video gaming wasn't one of them. Turns out that being trapped at home facing an apocalyptic end of days made the escapist fantasy offered by video games an exceedingly attractive option. But it's more than that. Video games offer a new way to stay in touch, to feel connected. They provide a shared experience to nurture relationships. Without the ability to share meals or enjoy sunsets or take in a destination, video games provide a far richer backdrop than a fake Zoom background. Remember how in travel, poor technology could be overcome by a fantastic trip? Well, in video games, technology has the ability to either make or break an experience. Take Cyberpunk 2077. This highly anticipated title had incredible art design and fantastic storytelling, but was plagued by technical difficulties from the get-go. In fact, it was so bad that Sony made the unprecedented move of pulling the title from its PlayStation Store. On the other hand, for a game like Valorant, technology had an integral role in turning it into the preeminent tactical shooter. Because of limitations in latency and bandwidth, first-person shooters are plagued by a phenomenon called peeker's advantage, where players moving quickly and playing aggressively will be able to see enemies faster. This rewards a style of play that favors quick reactions over tactics. The team at Valorant invested in building out an entirely new network layer that allowed for more efficient communications between server and client. This swayed the balance of the game back to players who were using strategy over pure reaction. Here, technology had a direct impact on both the playability and popularity of the product. There are many genres of video games, and new ones are constantly popping up. This is because the barrier to entry to creating new games and also delivering those games to players is constantly being reduced. From metagame design systems like Minecraft and Roblox to full-featured game engines like Unity and Unreal, there are a wide variety of tools for even the most indie of game developers. Games like Fall Guys and Among Us have enjoyed huge popularity over the last year, thanks to their broad appeal and low barrier to entry. But these games probably never would have been developed by a AAA studio, thanks to their unproven concepts and non-reliance on artwork. On the surface, it may seem like video games and travel exist at two opposite ends of a spectrum. But I've come to realize that they both revolve around distinct experiences, community, and human connection. One of the casualties of COVID was the Coachella Music Festival, an annual gathering in the California desert to see some of the most popular bands all in one place. More than a concert, it's an experience, a place to see and be seen. In 2019, attendance was 99,000 people per day over 6 days. Organizers were hoping that 2020 would be even bigger, with headliners including artist Travis Scott. When the event was canceled, Scott teamed up with Epic Games and performed a concert within the FORTNITE universe. The only way to attend was to play the game. 12.3 million people ended up watching that concert. Human beings are hardwired to build community and make connections. But oftentimes in the travel industry, we divide travelers up into segments. We create categories based on externally definable characteristics. While this is no doubt valuable from a marketing standpoint, it runs the risk of missing opportunities to build broader consumer bases. FORTNITE, League of Legends, Overwatch, Counter-Strike, World of Warcraft. These are international games with truly global audiences. If you're a player of one of these games, you will always find a common framework and empathy for a fellow player, whether they speak the same language, had a similar upbringing, or at a similar stage in life. How can the travel industry leverage its common experiences to build connections that wouldn't exist otherwise? I want to thank everybody for taking the time. For any of you who might want to follow in my path of leaving travel to join video gaming, Riot is hiring technologists in our Singapore office. Please reach out to me if you're interested. Otherwise, I can't wait until I can make it over to that part of the world again, and I'd love to see as many of you as I can in person. Thanks.